It is 9:30 on the Monster, and right on cue, Rogers Redding, the National Coordinator of College Football Officiating, joins us. Good morning, Rogers. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing well. Last time we talked to you, you were the SEC Coordinator of Officials, so we haven't spoken since then, so congratulations to you. How's that?
Well, I've been kicked upstairs, I guess.
Is that what it is? All right, we want to talk, as we always do, Rogers, about rule changes for the upcoming season. This year's rule changes, though, were only allowed if there was safety involved, correct?
Yeah, that's right. The NCAA has a 2-year rule change process, and in the even-numbered years, like this year, the only rules that can be considered are around player safety. So that means that things like clock rules or formations or things like that would be off the table, but we can always talk about player safety.
Bud and I sat here a lot last season talking about the targeting rule and how a player could be pulled back into the game, but the penalty stood. Apparently there was disgruntlement over that. How did that come about being changed?
Yeah, that was the pushback we got last year, and so the committee felt like that it was a good thing to do to say if the guy goes back in the game and the targeting foul was the only thing that was there, then the 15 penalty would be erased. Now, when the committee first put this rule in, they were very intentional about keeping the 15-yard penalty because a guy might get lucky. In other words, he might try to come in high and get lucky and hit a little lower than the neck, let's say. And so the committee felt like, well, look, we need to try to get this behavior out of the game, even though the guy may get lucky and not hit the head-neck area. And so they wanted to keep the 15-yard penalty. But our experience with the rule last year was so good that the committee felt like we can go with that, and if the targeting is overturned, then the player could go back in the game.
Was that not something that, I'm just asking as a layman, was that not something that could have been addressed maybe mid-season, or did that not make sense to do that?
It could have been, and theoretically that's always possible, but there was not, on the part of the committee, there was a feeling like, let's complete the season, let's get a good set of data, let's have a full season of experience with this, and then see about making a change. Now, I should caution you this, Bobby. Just because a player comes back in a game does not necessarily mean that a 15-yard penalty will go away. Here's the reason.
Okay.
You might have some other foul associated with it. For example, roughing the passer. Let's say the quarterback drops back to pass, defensive lineman comes in, he launches, crushes the guy in the passer in the neck area, and the referee has roughing the passer with targeting. That might go to replay, and the replay official says, well, the targeting isn't there because he didn't get to the head neck, he got to the shoulder. But the 15-yard penalty for roughing the passer would still stand. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So you'd have a combination of the targeting with the roughing the passer, not really two separate fouls, but combined fouls with the same action.
Okay.
And so the referee will announce the targeting is overturned, the player returns to the game, but by rule, the 15-yard penalty for roughing the passer will be enforced.
Okay, great explanation on that. Rogers Redding, the National Coordinator of College Football Officiating, with us on the Monster. Targeting fouls in games without instant replay, the halftime review. I assume that pertains to any division in college football, right?
Yeah, any division that does not have instant replay, and typically, certainly divisions 2 and 3 do not.
Right.
Most of FCS does not, although there is a little bit of a move by FCS. Some of the conferences are going to use it this year. The SWAC is going to instant replay. Some of the others are experimenting with it, so it's going to happen for FCS in a few years. But we felt like that, the committee felt like that when a targeting foul takes place in the first half and the player was gone for the game, there really was no recourse if you didn't have instant replay. In the case of a second half foul, they could because the part of the penalty for the second half is that the player sits out the first half of the following game. And so in the case of a second half foul, they can send a video to me and let me make a decision about what would happen the following game. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But in the case of a first half foul last year, you just kind of had to live with it. There wasn't any recourse. So by having the referee review whatever video is available at halftime, and that's going to be very uneven. I mean, some places will have pay-per-view TV, other places will have coaches video, other places might only have, Johnny's cell phone video, you know what I'm saying? And so it's going to be very different in different places, but we felt like that at least to give them some opportunity at halftime to take a look at the video and see if the player might come back in for the second half.
Rogers Redding with us on the Monster this morning. There's a extension of the rule as it relates to roughing the passer. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, this has to do with what's called low hits on the passer. And what we're trying to do there is to protect the quarterback, and most of the quarterback, but any passer's knee from being blasted when he's in a passing stance and a passing posture and really can't defend himself. This has not come up very much in college football, but the pros have had it for some time. It's sometimes called the Tom Brady rule. Tom Brady got a knee torn up a few years ago because of this. And so what the rule says is if a player's in a passing posture, then the defense cannot, and we use the language forcibly hit. That is to say, not just making a good wrap-up tackle. We don't want to prevent the defense from making a play, but can't just drive that headgear or drive that shoulder forcibly into the knee or below of the passer, who's basically unprotected because he's in a stance. He's trying to find a receiver, and he doesn't have an opportunity to defend himself. Now, if he becomes a runner, he's just a runner, and so all bets are off there. The defense still is able to make a play, but if he is set up in a passing posture, or he may become a runner and then reset. If he resets in that passing posture, he regains that protection. I don't think we'll see it very much, but it is another player safety extension of the roughing the passer rule.
Well, Tom Brady's got all kinds of rules named after him, doesn't he, bud?
I was going to say, I think every rule since 2008 is the Tom Brady rule.
As a matter of fact, yeah.
Rogers Redding, the National Coordinator of College Football Officiating, with us on the Monster this morning.
Rogers, I want to ask you about the numerals and their contrast, but if you don't mind, I'd like to go back real quick to the talking about the halftime reviews in teams that do not have instant replay. I noticed some of the language says that such a review would be optional, and there must be a conference policy in place or a pregame agreement between the teams. Is there? I'm assuming there will not be a situation where a coach will say, "We've got video of that, but frankly, I don't want you to see it." I mean, if there's video available and there's determined that there needs to be a look at that, they'll be required to give that video. Is that right?
If the conference, the way the rule is framed is so that if you have two teams in the same conference playing each other, there needs to be a conference policy in place at the beginning of the season about whether or not they're going to use this. Some conferences are going to choose not to use it, so it's optional. If you got two teams playing together that are from different conferences, then the two teams would have to agree before the ball game that what they're going to do, if they're going to use this, which video they're going to use, where it's going to be reviewed at the stadium, those kinds of things, so that there are no surprises. Everybody will know going into the game, if we have such a foul, here's what we're going to do. And so there's no coming in at halftime and saying, well, what we don't want is a referee looking at a coach's video, let's say, and then have somebody come blasting in the room, hey, I've got a cell phone video that's a lot better than that. I mean, everything needs to be determined ahead of time so that you don't have those kinds of confusing situations. So you might have a situation where if the school has this, if the conference or the two teams have decided to do it, then they must do it. In other words, if you've got a foul in the first half, the referee will look at that at halftime, whatever the video is available. And so if it's a coach's video, the coaches can't say, "Nah, I don't think I want you to look at that video." If it's already been decided ahead of time that it'll happen, then it must happen.